Abby, nice to see you. Now, we go on to the papers, and with our guest David Davis and Sue McGregor, let's have a look at the front pages for today and see what's cooking here. The Sunday Times, we'll talk about the weekend NHS care shortly with the man who runs the health service, and EU migrants we'll discuss as well in this programme. The Observer, Ofsted chief declares war on grammar schools. Mandela mourning as well, front page, still with a funeral today. Sunday Telegraph reports here another transport story, actually. HS2 report that ministers want to hide, raising doubts about the whole HS2 project. And the Mail, number 10, plan to cap benefit at 2 children. That's a child benefit story. More papers in front of us here. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Sue, let me start with you and South Africa.
I've picked up on the Sun on Sunday, actually. Inevitably, all the papers have quite a lot about the funeral and what went on earlier in Johannesburg. But this is inevitably out of date. We've been watching live the funeral taking place in, do I dare try the click? Kunu.
Well done.
Not very well done in the Eastern Cape. But the headline over the Sun story is Mandela home as Tutu rages at snub, Archbishop not invited to funeral. Well, we do know this morning that Archbishop Tutu was there, but it's very interesting and perhaps significant that Archbishop Tutu felt that he had not been invited, because it shows how riven some of the upper echelons of the ANC are. And Tutu has come out of this rather well, I think. He's come out as somebody who's prepared to criticise the ANC. And we remember that President Jacob Zuma was booed in the stadium in Soweto. So watch this space, I think.
Yeah, the booing was remarkable, wasn't it? Just took over the whole stadium.
Yes, and it was a rather, dare I say it, at this late stage, shambolic event, sadly, because some grand things were there and some wonderful people were saying good things, but it was too long, it was very wet, which they couldn't help. But this seems to have gone so far like clockwork in Kunu. Closer
to home, David Davis, and the story I mentioned, the child benefit idea.
Yes, big story, front page of the Mail. This is one of the issues that's going to be a big issue in the run-up to the next election. The whole question of welfare generally, the demand really from the economic demands to cut the size of the welfare budget, and this is a highly contentious one. The idea of cutting all benefits beyond 2 children, and it's a kite flying exercise. It's clear. I mean, the number 10 thing. This is actually an article written by Nadim Zahawi, but he's a man who's in high regard by number 10. So what's going on here, I think, is the government, the Conservative Party, are trying to see whether this is popular. I think it probably will be, because people do want to see us be tougher about welfare.
And they've got some huge amount they think they'll save with that.
There was another floating around, 12 billion at some point, but you know, that doesn't relate to this. This is much smaller than that. But this whole area, the welfare toughening up so far, tightening up so far, has been very popular and actually very effective. And this will be one which will, I think, divide the parties.
Sue, we're going all over the place here. The China moon landing.
Well, yes, all the papers have got that. The rabbit has landed, Rabbit Jade. One wonders, of course, 4 decades after Neil Armstrong made it to the moon, why the Third World is spending so much of its money on this. And we know that it's about prestige. But on the other hand, one can think of an awful lot, particularly in India's case, of other things that the money could be better spent on. But the rabbit has landed safely, and meanwhile Iran has sent up another monkey into space, different objectives. One hopes it's the right monkey coming back, because last time, a few months ago, when they sent one up, everyone accused
a stand-in monkey.
There was a stand-in. It wasn't quite the same looking monkey as it came back. But Europe needn't feel left out of this moon landing story, because the Independent on Sunday has one about, they headline it, "One Small Hop for Mankind," referring to the rabbit. But it seems that a European Greek researcher, indeed Mr. Karapantsios, has discovered that if astronauts are given food made from raw potatoes, which is lightly fried and keeps its crispiness, chips are likely to be the most popular food for astronauts. Oh dear. Think of their waistlines.
Doesn't sound right, does it, at all?
It's not clear to me whether they're going to cook them in space either.
This is not made at all clear. After that film Gravity, of course, anything can go on in space, including cooking chips.
You don't want a ship pan fire in space, you're right. David, you've got... Now, let's go to this EU immigration story, which we'll talk about later with Duke Ramuna. The Bulgarians, Romanians coming here from January the 1st.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's happened for people who've not been following the story, the one or two people, on January the 1st, the accession period comes to an end for Bulgaria and Romania, and they then have free movement of people. They've got the same rights of movement as anybody else in Europe. And huge fears that there will be thousands, tens of thousands, if you believe UKIP, hundreds of thousands of people coming into Britain, and it's become a huge, contentious political issue. The government is caught because it doesn't want ab initio to have a fight with the European Union courts and the Commission over it, but that's where it's going. And what this is a story that Theresa May, the Home Office, are looking at a variety of policies to try and bring it under control. Now, I have to say straight away, it's a bit closing the stable door after the horse has bolted, because this is all for the future. The issue in front of us is going to be the 1st of January.
Are these 70 MPs who are trying to put down some legislation against, is that you?
Oh, I'm one of the...
I just assumed it was, yeah.
I'm one of the list. What that is an idea that we just say to the European Union, look, this free movement of peoples was not designed for a time when you've got some countries whose average wage is a third of our minimum wage. You know, if you or I were Bulgarian or Romanian, we'd be on the train on January the 1st to get here, because for them, the British economy is riches beyond the dreams of avarice. So it needs to be dealt with straight away. It needs to be dealt with by saying to the European Union, I'm sorry, this can't work. Let's just rethink this. Let's put it off for a couple of years and rethink it.
The January the 1st migration moment can be deferred even at this late stage?
Well, I think it may well be too late now, because the government's put off the bill. That this is an amendment to the 70-odd MPs you're talking about. It was an amendment to a bill that's been put off. It was going to be debated this month. I think it's going to be January now. But the simple truth is that it should have been gripped earlier, and it should really have been dealt with, I'm afraid, in fairly strong terms. The Europeans are just sort of shrugging their shoulders. We've had the experience of 13,000 forecast immigrants turning into 1 million or so with the previous expansion of Europe, and that hasn't all been bad. Don't get me wrong, but it has meant a lot of young Brits have not had jobs or have not been able to compete, and that's really, really very serious in an economy like ours.
Now, Sue, Mrs. Thatcher and the Queen.
Yes.
We'll never stop talking about this relationship.
I know. I mean, there are at least 2 plays that have been on in London, one of them in the West End, reflecting on this relationship. Now, this is from the Mail on Sunday. Secret letters reveal what Maggie really thought of audiences with the Queen. How do we know this? Well, the Mail on Sunday put forward a Freedom of Information request, and so it's a little ahead of probably what should only be revealed on the 31st of this month. But it shows that the Prime Minister, Mrs. Thatcher, repeatedly rescheduled and cancelled their weekly audiences. This must be absolutely unprecedented. On one occasion, she turned down an audience because she preferred to have drinks with a group of French bankers, but Number 10 officials chose not to explain this. And in another, she declined, wait for it, a generous invitation to a dine and sleep party. Now, that's not just handed out, you know, to anybody, at Windsor Castle, because Dennis had a business engagement the next morning. Well, now, it is not revealed, and probably never will be, what Her Majesty thought about this, but her PPS, I think, said, you know, I think we better stop putting forward these excuses about not being able to meet Her Majesty, because, you know, we might offend dreadfully, and possibly did, who knows.
There are one meeting I'd love to be a fly on the wall, Mrs. Thatcher and the Queen, would be something else.
Do you think they might have secretly filmed it? Wouldn't that be nice?
Wouldn't it be something?
All right, you've got a poll there which asks some interesting, strange questions, actually, about the political leaders.
Yes, in your introduction, Jeremy, you were talking about the sort of poll standings of the parties. I don't think you were probably referring to who you want on your quiz team. The public, it would appear, would pick David Cameron for that, or who you'd want to invite to your Christmas dinner. I'm afraid George Osborne, I guess the Scrooge of our age, gets -1 for that. So it's, you know, it's...
Is this a new way of finding out who wins the next election?
Well, it's a new way of getting a sense of how people view the leaders, I think. And actually, Cameron comes out pretty well. Miliband comes out better than you think. Farage comes out well in the things that would happen in a pub, I think. You know, like the quiz team and so on.
Who would you like to spend your Christmas dinner with, Dave?
My own family, nobody else. None of the above. The other interesting thing, and serious point in this poll, is the standing of UKIP. It's at 18 points against Liberals at 8. And I think the story we were talking about earlier about immigration is going to make that worse from our point of view in the new year.
OK, we've got time for one more each, and I should have mentioned at the beginning, Sunday People, with a story on my wonderful colleague, Susanna Reid.
Oh, she's doing
you want to talk about her
fantastic.
and women on TV?
I would love to talk about her because I think she's done a fantastic job and she may well win Strictly, yes, next week. But I'd like to just lower the temperature a bit and mention, if I may, because there's very little about it. I had to scratch around about this huge story, in my view. The Independent on Sunday has reflected the execution of King Jong-un's uncle, Jan Song-tek, which has startled the world. It's slightly gone out of the papers, but the Independent on Sunday has got a former British ambassador, John Everard, to write a little piece about it. I mean, he points out this will be the very first time that many North Koreans have learnt officially of heresy at the top of their regime. They were brought up to believe that Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il were infallible geniuses, but they gave their trust to a man who was no better than a dog. This is the man who was taken out and machine-gunned a moment after he was found guilty. There's a reign of terror happening in North Korea, it would seem, and I think it's very, very worrying for the West.
Thank you both for doing our papers this morning. Sue McGregor, David Davis, MP. Well, just 10 days till Christmas, so we shouldn't be too surprised if it feels pretty cold and dark and wintry this morning, with a rather more scientific